Hi, everyone. Just want to make sure that you can hear me. Okay, great. So welcome to our third virtual conference. I can't believe that we are on our third one, but I feel like that's really exciting. And the map that Sophia just showed was the first time that I'd seen where everyone was coming from. And it made me really happy because part of the reason that we've done this is to try to make sure that no matter where you are in the globe, you can participate and you can be a part of this, and you can learn and talk with other young and emerging evaluators and experts, and we can all learn together. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about EvalYouth's accomplishments. So for those of you that don't know what EvalYouth is, there may be some of you who this is the first time you're hearing about us. We are a global network, which means we're international. And our goal is focused on two areas. The first is to promote young and emerging evaluators, who we call YEEs, to become competent professionals who contribute to evaluation capacity. And we think about that at multiple levels: national, regional, and international. Our second goal, however, is to promote what we call youth-focused and youth participatory evaluation practice. And so this is really about getting youth, young and emerging evaluators, adolescents, children, all of those groups truly involved in evaluation, and not just involved, but seen as co-creators and equal partners in that work. So EvalYouth, as Sophia mentioned, started in 2015. Actually, it was launched in November of 2015. And our priorities that we have been focused on since then actually came from an inclusive bottom-up approach. These photos that you see on the screen actually came from working sessions with young and emerging evaluators, where we talked about what were the needs, what were they hearing from their different parts of the globe, what were their experiences, what did they see as being really important in this landscape. And so we started our work with this principle and this approach, and we continue to use that approach today. We actually started with 24 young and emerging evaluators. You can see them here on the screen. And now we reach over 20,000 young and emerging evaluators and youth across the globe. And that's been in two and a half years. I mean, which is really amazing when you think about it. We, of course, have achieved a number of things. I always have a hard time putting everything on one slide because sometimes I can't believe how much we've been able to accomplish. But here is just a general overview of some of the both initiatives that we're working on, but also ways in which we do our work. So in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you see our 3 task forces that are currently active. You also see what we've been up to in terms of presentations and mentoring and learning and dissemination. Of course, we couldn't do this work without generous support from our funders. And so you see those who have actually funded the work, including funding this particular platform for this conference. The other thing I wanted to note is the pictures that you see on the slide are those who are in leadership positions, either as task force leaders or leaders of EvalYouth Global. We really have, from the beginning, seen this network as a network for YEEs and youth, by YEEs and youth. And I think when you look at both our task force leadership as well as the members of our task forces and various initiatives, you see that, again, that's another principle that we continue to live by. So I want to highlight just a few of the things that we have been up to recently. One is a campaign that we launched this year called Welcome the YEE campaign. You can actually look to see what we've been up to in terms of this campaign on Twitter. And basically what we did was we did a number of interviews with young and emerging evaluators, as well as leaders within VOPEs, or organizations that are professional organizations for evaluation. And these individuals talked about the role that YEE can really play in VOPEs and those who have been really active shared their experiences. So YEEs talked about being able to have a seat at the leadership table, but also more experienced leaders talked about the benefits of having YEE voice present within VOBEs. And it wasn't just about, having young energy and things like that, but it was actually about the work being better and the work of the VOPE being better because youth and young and emerging evaluators were at the table. So I encourage you to check out that campaign if you haven't done it. The other thing that I'm really proud of that we've done was we launched the first international global mentoring program. To give you a sense of scale, we had 50 slots for a couple of different regions across the globe, and we ended up receiving 700 mentee applications and 150 mentor applications from 114 different countries. We have wrapped up that pilot mentoring program. Because we are evaluators, evaluation is at the root of everything we do. So we did an evaluation of the mentoring program. It was a young and emerging evaluator that contract went to through a competitive process. We were really proud of that. And we also believe in learning. So, there were some things that went great. There were some areas for growth, and we are taking that information, revising the program, and we expect to launch the next phase in 2019. This year, we also partnered with UNFPA and UN Volunteers to launch the UN Volunteer M&E program. This is a program that is like an internship program for young and emerging evaluators who are interested in an M&E career within the UN system. Again, we were overwhelmed by the response. We had identified, not just through UNFPA, but a number of key partners, which you see at the bottom of this infographic. We had identified about 60 opportunities for a UN volunteer specifically in M&E across the globe. And so 60 slots, we had almost 2,000 applications from 144 countries. So again, this tells us that we're on the right track, that we're listening to youth and YEE, and we are partnering with organizations that really get that. And when we do that, we're able to accomplish quite a bit. Of course, you're here because this is the third virtual free conference. Like everything we do, all of our e-learning, we always do things in multiple languages. And so our virtual conferences have always been done in English, Spanish, French, and Russian, or I should say English with simultaneous translation in those languages. Some of our other webinars and things like that have been done with additional languages. So to the extent possible, we also try to offer simultaneous translation in Arabic when funding allows. And part of this is just a recognition that language shouldn't be a barrier to access to information and access to this kind of knowledge and access to what we're doing. And so we really think about that in the work that we do, and it's at the center of what we do. One of the things that I have to say was unintended when we imagined EvalYouth and it sprang to life in November 2015 is that EvalYouth chapters would begin to spring up. And we welcome this. We think it is great. Some of the chapters that have sprung up, you see on this slide here. And what we recognize that they play a really important supporting role for YEEs at the national level. And so we work with them to try to think about how we at EvalYouth Global can support what they do, whether it's through supporting conference activities, or helping to promote something that they're doing, or anything like that. So anyways, we're really proud to see that, and we actually think that they play a really important role in the international evaluation landscape. This year, we actually were a part of the closing presidential plenary at the American Evaluation Association conference. You can see here the infographic that was launched for that. I was really happy to see this because I and Katie Richard Schuster worked together to create a space where it wasn't our voices that were at the forefront, but the voice of youth and young and emerging evaluators. And so we had youth there that had been involved in evaluations, truly as co-creators in evaluation, talking about their experiences. But we also had young and emerging evaluators, in particular, Quadratula Jahid, talking about his experience as a young and emerging evaluator, and what he saw as both the power of participation, but also some of the limitations that he sees and he experiences that he thinks it's really important for the evaluation community to hear and to know about. So I will tell you that was recorded and will be available, I'm told, shortly from the American Evaluation Association. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, when it does become available, we certainly will let you know so that you can watch it and hear from these really amazing young and emerging evaluators and youth about the work that they've been doing. We also have tried to look for partnerships with other networks. So EvalYouth is one of the networks under the Eval Partners umbrella. And so a couple of ways that we've been able to do that is at one of the previous virtual conferences, we actually partnered with Eval Indigenous, and someone from the Eval Indigenous community who was the young and emerging evaluator came and talked about her experience and her knowledge and what she thought was really important for young and emerging evaluators and the evaluation community at large to know about Indigenous perspectives and Indigenous voices in evaluation. We also had a joint workshop with Eval Gender Plus in the joint VOPE Latin American Conference that happened in Guanajuato, Mexico, almost a year ago. And we brainstormed 3 ways that we, as sister networks, wanted to work together to try to not only promote the interest of young and emerging evaluators, but also gender equity. And lastly, recently we were in Eval Colombo with the Global Parliamentarians Forum, and we not only had an opportunity there to talk about the work that we were doing as part of EvalYouth, but we also were able to sit down with young parliamentarians and actually try to think about ways that we might begin to collaborate with them to make sure, again, that the voices of young and emerging evaluators and youth parliamentarians could work together. And the last thing I will do is invite you to get involved. So there's a couple of different ways that you can get involved with EvalYouth. If you'd like to just know about webinars that we're hosting, initiatives that we're launching, for instance, the next phase of the mentoring program or new internship opportunities or things like that, I encourage you to connect with us. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter. We also have a Google group, which we use as a email listserv. And of course, everything we do, we record and we post on our YouTube channel. So prior conferences are there, prior webinars are there, and it is there in multiple languages. And part of that is just, we believe in, again, making sure people have access to this information and everything that we're trying to do. And so to the extent possible, we try to build in sustainability in the work that we do. So, so I'd encourage you to connect that way. Of course, you can email us, evalyouth@gmail.com. And, you know, if you've got questions or something you want us to know about, you know, I certainly encourage that. The last thing I'll mention is that often when I talk, folks ask me how you get involved in EvalYouth, and we have a volunteer form that you can fill out, and the URL is on the screen there. And I really encourage you to fill that out if you want to get involved. It comes directly to us, and within a couple of days, someone from the network will reach out to you and talk about ways that you see, you hope to get involved and things like that. So if you haven't had an opportunity to volunteer and you'd like to get involved, which I encourage you to do, please fill out the volunteer form because we'd love to hear from you. So thanks everyone, and I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Bianca, for your presentation. We have a few questions. The first question we have is, how can someone create their their local EvalYouth chapter, or join their local EvalYouth chapter where there is one? And also whether someone who is older than 35 years old can join the network. I'm giving you back the floor now.
Oh, so two really great questions. So if you, so we have started to get, Khalil and Marie in particular have started to get some questions around from folks that said, hey, we'd like to start a regional or national, chapter, but we don't really know where to start. And so like many things, we try to be really responsive to those kinds of questions. So there are two things that we're doing right now. One is when we get those kinds of requests, and typically they come to the Gmail, the evalyouth@gmail.com email. We try to pair them up and introduce them to a network, a chapter that has been around for a while, and there are a couple of them. For instance, EvalYouth and the Francophone emerging evaluator networks have been around for quite a while, as well as EES, technical working group for emerging evaluators. And so we try to link them up because we think those who have been through it beforehand can provide some helpful advice about what worked, what didn't. I know many of those chapters have been really willing to share resources and things like that, which I think is great. The other thing we're doing is we just launched and actually closed a consultancy opportunity to document success stories for these chapters actually springing up for EvalYouth and the Francophonie Network. And the reason we're doing that is so that there is some documented actually product that talks about how you can do this and what worked and what really led to the success of it, and what were some of the lessons they learned that they want to pass on to others who might want to grow regional or local chapters. So so until that guidance comes out, definitely send us email, but I will tell you in 2019, we expect to issue that guidance document for others who might be interested in that. And then the other question is one that I also get about who can be a member of EvalYouth. So there is a part of our definition of, so two things. One, there is a part of our definition of young and emerging evaluator, which is on our webpage, that talks about an age, right? 35 years or younger. But there's other parts of that I think really have nothing to do with age. So for instance, those who are recent graduates within the first 5 years. Individuals go to school for lots of different reasons at lots of different times, and that part of our definition is not necessarily about age. Another part of that definition is just someone who maybe is in a sister discipline or a sister field, but has found their way into evaluation and wants to, from that perspective, obviously, right? You could be any age and be a young or emerging evaluator, right? But the last thing I'll tell you is that there are many people who are part of EvalYouth that aren't young and emerging evaluators and truly just believe that they want to support young and emerging evaluators. They believe that young and emerging evaluators play a role. And so, on our volunteer form, right, it says you don't need to be a young and emerging evaluator to be a volunteer for EvalYouth. So we welcome any